The Trading Game by Gary Stevenson. Prologue. I want to tell you a story. Caleb's oversized face loomed over the table. Beneath it sat 2 ramen bowls, one empty, one full. A few stray wisps of steam floated upwards. They danced with his beaming white smile. From where I was sitting, slumped down low in my chair, the 2 chopsticks jutting upwards from my bowl seemed to reach nearly up to his chin. His smile grew. I used to know a really good trader. A really, really good trader. He used to work for Deutsche Bank. Smart guy, young, just like you. Caleb's thick forearms were wrapped around his warm, empty bowl, and they pushed down, hard into the table. His hands were not far from my face now, clasped tightly together. I've never forgotten how those fingers looked, thick, round and pink, like raw sausages. They looked ready to burst. You know, he was a really good trader, this guy. Made a lot of money. Made a lot of money for himself. Made a lot of money for Deutsche Bank. He had a good career ahead of him. The hubbub of the restaurant filled the space around us. It wasn't one of those rustic, hole-in-the-wall ramen joints that seemed to birth themselves in alleys of Japan's big cities. This was a big, sprawling corporate restaurant on the 6th floor of a big, sprawling corporate skyscraper. Loose-tied businessmen clinked their beer glasses with their bosses, laughing at their jokes. A few American bankers mixed with the Japanese salaryman types, talking too much and too loudly. I wasn't talking at all. I was watching that oversized face float through the darkness across the table towards me. But you know, this guy, this young trader, even though he was a good trader, he had one really serious problem. One fatal flaw, you could say. You see, this guy, he thought he could walk away. He thought he could leave. Do you know what I mean? Caleb was a big guy. I probably made that clear by now. But it wasn't just his face and his fingers that were big. Everything about him seemed about 2 sizes bigger than it should be. His eyebrows were big. His chin was big. Somehow the hair on his head was too big, too thick, and too dark. More than all of that, his smile was enormous. Huge, white and pearly. Right now it seemed to me to stretch wider than his face. Like the Tuesday night Cheshire cat of a ramen yar, that smile seemed to shine through the dark of the room. So this guy, he decided he was going to take the money, walk away, leave the industry, you know? Nice idea. Have a family somewhere. Sweet. You see, the thing is, this guy though, he just didn't really understand how this industry works. Deutsche didn't really want to see him leave, you know? It didn't take a genius to tell this conversation was going, and I felt my stomach starting to sink. I began to feel a bit sick, and I could taste or smell something in my mouth. Was it blood? I sat deep in the chair, and I watched. Caleb was still smiling. That smile seemed to grow bigger by the minute. Anyway, Deutsche Bank went back and had a look at all of his trades, you know? All of his chat history, all of his emails. He'd been working there for a long time, you know? He'd done a lot of trades. And they managed to find some stuff in there that wasn't good stuff. Do you know what I mean? What I'm talking about? Stuff he shouldn't have done. I could start to feel a fire in my legs now. In my feet. A hot, growing, itchy feeling. A burning. But I didn't move. So, you know, it wasn't the right thing to do. But Deutsche actually looked that trader to court for a few things. Things he hadn't really done that bad, to be honest. But he managed to put something together. The case rumbled through the courts for years and years. Do you know what I mean? In and out of court. In and out of court. Real nightmare. That trader, great young trader. He never really got to leave. Never got to have that family. Just courtrooms. Best years of his life. Can you imagine that? Gary, can you imagine? The case never went anywhere. But he lost all of his money anyway. In the end, lawyers' fees, all of his money, and much more besides. In the end, he was bankrupt. In the end, that guy lost everything. The fire was everywhere now. So was the sickness, and that blood taste. I still didn't move though. I looked up at his face. Gary, are you listening to me? You understand what I'm saying here? That big round face loomed closer still. Gary, I like you. I think you're a good person. But sometimes Bad things happen to good people. You're going to learn that. We can make life very difficult for you. In that moment, a lot of the memories came flooding back. Memories that had carried me thousands of miles, away from Tokyo, back to Ilford, East London. I was 18 and sitting on a football, a dead cul-de-sac next to the railway. As Harry told me that his mum had cancer, hadn't known what to say at the time. You want to play football? I remember being stood up against the wall of an alleyway on a dark night and watching Saravan as he threatened to stab me. His hands were in his pockets. Did he have a knife? I didn't know. I remembered being chased down streets of the terraced houses and jumping over garden fences, that time that Barthab got run over and the way his body shook as it lay on the ground. I remembered all the stupid violence and the blood and the nonsense, so much nonsense, of the kids on the street and all promises that I'd made and all the people I'd known. I remembered sitting with Jamie on the top of the multi-story car park in the night time, watching the new skyscrapers go up around us in our city and telling him that I was going to be somebody. Someday. Promising him that I'd do it. He laughed at me, smoking into the moonlight. But he knew that I did it though. So did I. No, I thought. It doesn't end here. Not here in this cold corporate restaurant. Not buried down by the weight of that smile. Part 1. Going up. In some ways, I was born to be a trader. At the end of the street I grew up on, in front of the tall concave wall of a recycling centre, a lamppost and a telegraph pole stood 4 metres apart from one another, forming the perfect set of impromptu goalposts. If you stand between those 2 posts, take 10 big steps backwards and stare upwards and between them into the far distance, the light of the tallest Canary Wharf skyscraper will peek over that high wall and wink at you. After school as a child, I would spend long evenings kicking a battered football in and around those goalposts, wearing back-to-school shoes and my brother's school uniform. When my mum would come round and call me home for dinner, I'd look back and watch the skyscraper wink at me. It seemed to mean some sort of new life. It wasn't just the streets of East London I shared with these gleaming, towering temples of capitalism. There was something else too, some kind of shared belief, something about money, something about want. The importance of money and the knowledge that we didn't have much of it was something that I always felt deeply. In one of my earliest memories, my parents gave me a £1 coin and they sent me to the Esso garage to buy lemonade. At some point in the trip, I dropped that £1 coin and lost it. In my memory, I searched for that £1 coin what seemed like hours, crawling under cars, scrabbling in the drains before returning home, empty-handed in floods of tears. In reality, it was probably only 30 minutes. But 30 minutes is a long time when you're a child. I guess and £1 was a lot of money. I don't know if I ever really lost that love for money. Although now, when I look back and think about it, I'm not sure that love is the right word. Perhaps, especially when I was a kid, I think it might have been more of a fear. But whether it's fear or a love or a hunger, it only got stronger. I was chasing those pounds I didn't have. At 12, I started selling penny sweets in school. At 13, I started delivering papers, 364 days a year, for £13 a week. By 16, my high school sales business had become considerably more adventurous, more profitable, and more illicit. But those small kills were never really the end game, and every evening after sun went down, I'd always look up at those skyscrapers winking down at me from the end of the street. But there were many other ways in which I was born to be a trader. And those ways were and are very important. Because there are many, many young, hungry, ambitious boys kicking broken footballs around lampposts and cars in the shadows of East London skyscrapers. Many of them are smart. Many of them are committed. Almost all of them would make all kinds of sacrifices to put on a tie and some cufflinks and go and walk into those tall, shiny towers of money. But if you step onto those trading floors, which take pride of place in the glimmering skyscrapers where young men earn millions of pounds every year in the heart of what was once East London's docklands, you will not hear the proud accents of Millwall and Bow, Stepney and Mile End, Shadwell and Poplar. I know, because I worked on one of those trading floors. Someone once asked me where my accent was from. He'd just graduated from Oxford. The Citibank Tower in Canary Wharf has 42 floors. In 2006, which was the year I first entered that building, it was the joint second tallest building in the UK. One day in 2007, I decided to go up to the top floor of the building to see what the view was like and to see if I could see my home. The top floor of the Citibank Centre was used only for conferences and events. This meant that when it was not in use, the entire space sat totally empty. A vast, uninterrupted country of lush blue carpet, bordered on all sides by thick glass windows. I floated across the soundless carpet to the window, but I couldn't see the place where I lived. From the 42nd floor of the Citibank Centre, you cannot see East London. You can only see the 42nd floor of the HSBC Tower. The ambitious young children of East London look up to the skyscrapers that cast shadows along the houses, but the skyscrapers don't look back. They look at each other. This is the story of how I, of all the kids playing football and selling sweets in those shadows, got a job on the Citibank trading floor. It's a story of how I became Citibank's most profitable trader in the whole world, and it's a story about why, after all of that, I quit. These were the years where the global economy started to slip off the precipice from which it's still falling. At times, my sanity slipped with it. At times, it still does. God knows I didn't treat everyone the best. Harry, Wizard, JB, myself, all the others who really should have had names. I hope you can forgive me for telling your stories. They're all part of my story, you know. I dedicate it to Anish's granddad, who, when we were drunken teenagers, and he was a drunken old man, would mutter to us endlessly the only sentence he knew well in English. Life is life. Game is game. We never really figured out what it meant. I still hope that one day we will, too. My path to the trading floor began at the London School of Economics. The London School of Economics is not really a normal university. With no grand, leafy campus, the university building camouflages themselves as a cluster of innocuous offices and secret themselves down a slide alley of London's West End. In spite of these relatively innocuous surroundings, the global elite funnel their children into the university with an astonishing enthusiasm. It seemed that no Russian oligarch, no Pakistani Air Force commander, and no Chinese political member had missed the opportunity to send an ambitious son, daughter, nephew, or niece over to this unremarkable corner of central London to study simultaneous equations for a few years before flying home to take over the running of the mother country, perhaps with a few years working at Goldman Sachs or Deloitte in between. In 2005, when I arrived at university to study maths and economics, I was not a typical LSE student. 3 years earlier, I had been expelled from high school for selling exactly £3 worth of cannabis. Before that, I tried to start a grime music collective. I had had a hoodie custom made with MC Gaz on the front and the Cardeverous crew in big stylized letters on the back. I turned up for my first day of lectures in an Echo tracksuit of matching blue and white hoodie and jogging bottoms. The white hoodie had a navy blue rhinal emblazoned on it. I didn't really have much of an idea before I got there of anything about university. But a kid at school told me that a degree from LSE was a one-way ticket to a big money job in the city, and that had been good enough for me. Unsurprisingly, I didn't really fit in. The Russian oligarchs didn't eat at halal fried chicken shops. The Singaporeans didn't understand my accent. To save money, I was living with my parents in Ilford, 10 miles east of the university. I'd just gotten my first proper girlfriend, who was also from Ilford, and I spent the majority of my first year drinking with her on park benches, sneaking her in and out of my bedroom window, over the railway tracks when my mum came home from work, and only really going to university for lectures and classes. Despite that, I was committed to doing well at LSE. I didn't have any family connections or any knowledge of the city. I wasn't tall or handsome. I didn't have a nice suit or smooth networking skills. The most impressive extracurriculars on my CV were an extremely uninspired career as a fast-rapping grime MC and 2 years fluffing pillows at the FS sofa store in Beckton. But math had always come naturally to me. So the way I saw it, there was only one path for me into the city. Beat all the Arab billionaires and Chinese industrialists to a top first-class degree and just pray to God that Goldman Sachs noticed. My plan to achieve this was relatively simple. Sit at the front of every lecture in class, make sure I understood everything that the professor and class teacher said. The strategy worked pretty well, pretty effective, and I finished the first year of the course with a decently high first. If I'm being totally honest, I found it pretty easy. I went away for the summer feeling as though my plan might just work. But when I returned to LSE for my second year, a couple of things had markedly changed. Firstly, suddenly, unprecedentedly, and seemingly apropos of nothing, nearly every student in the entire year group had become an intensely studied junior banker. I don't mean to say that everyone had actually secured jobs in the glittering skyscrapers of Canary Wharf or the city, but everyone, totally unexpectedly to me at least, began to behave as if they had. People started attending finance society events on Wednesdays and Fridays, and networking events with investment societies on Mondays as well. They began to use sentences consisting almost entirely of three-letter acronyms: ABS, IBD, CDS, CDO, M&A, and talked about sales and trading and securitization. For some inexplicable reason, a large number of the people started to attend lectures wearing full business suits. Rumours began to abound that the various students at inevitably the tall, broad-chested, finely coiffed, suit-wearing contingent of nationally ambiguous, clearly wealthy origin had already secured illustrious internships at Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, or Lehman Brothers. Some were even rumoured to have gotten full-time jobs. All students started to apply for internships. Not just 1 or 2 internships, but 15 or 20, sometimes more. Theoretical interview questions began to circulate among the student community on the alleged basis of having been put through a mythical student from the statistics or international relationship department. It became generally accepted knowledge that an interview candidate was likely to be asked how many bold people there were in the state of Virginia. One student was allegedly given 5 seconds to provide the answer to 49 times 49. All students diligently recorded that it was, of course, 2,401. Inexplicably long queues began to form spontaneously in unpredictable areas of the campus. Usually most of the queuing students wouldn't be quite certain when asked what was the queue actually for. But maybe at the end of it, someone would get an internship.